So you came to this video because you wanted to get 1,000 ways to make $1,000, and this video is most likely going to be anywhere from around 10 to 12 minutes, and that would mean that I would need to give you 100 ways to make $1,000 per minute off this video, which I probably could do, but I'm not sure if I can pull it off. So instead, I'm going to get right to it. I'm going to show you guys the book right here. It's 1,000 ways to make $1,000. You can actually go get this book, and there goes your 1,000 ways to make $1,000. And actually, this book is a bit older, although it's still good. But if you want more modern ideas, then you could also check out this book, which is the Ultimate Side Hustle book, which has over 450 ideas for making money. And then there's also this other book called 100 Side Hustles, which are ways that you can make extra money without actually quitting your job. And so with these three books combined, you have over 1,600 ways to make money. Now, that's only part one, and usually making money is hard until you start making money. And then the hardest part of this is what you're actually doing with that money. And we're going to talk about the plight of the attorney that makes 2.7 million per year and is very successful, and also the businessman who makes 1 million per year and who is also very successful. And by the way, guys, 1,000 ways to make $1,000 would actually work out to be 1 million. So if you pull this off, you'll be a millionaire. Now, the attorney making 2.7 million per year is living the life and has all the luxuries. And it's kind of like what most people do, which is they try to find out, or they concentrate on how to make a lot of money. And they're trying to make a lot of money because essentially they just want to spend a lot of money, which is okay. And that is the case of this super rich attorney that's making 2.7 million per year. Most of that income is being used for the lifestyle. And so eventually, when they get to the age of 65, they'll realize that whatever they have saved or tucked away isn't enough to maintain that 2.7 million per year lifestyle. Now, the businessman that's making $1 million per year is much different, because the businessman used most of his income initially in the early stages to diversify and create more income for himself. And so maybe he had like a supermarket, and then he diversified, and now he has fuel pumps, and he's in real estate. And so he's diversified, and soon after he has that 1 million per year income that will stay with him for the rest of his life. Now, the main point here is this: you can go and make all the money you want, which is part one, which is probably why you're focusing, or what you're focusing on, which is why you came to this video. But part two is also very important, and a lot of people always skip part two because they just don't think it's necessary once they make a lot of money. And so if you're making a lot of money, then initially in the first stages, instead of trying to spend that money, you should try to use that money to make you more money, so later on you either don't have to work as hard as you work right now, or if you just don't want to work anymore, which is eventually going to happen to you, and then you can still have that income. So in this video, we're going to talk about step two of what you should be doing after you make this 1 million, or after you start working on these 1,000 ways to make $1,000, so that you don't eventually run out of money. Now, this is the book that's called The Millionaire Next Door, and this book talks about the average millionaire. It gives you a profile of what the average millionaire does. And so, for example, the average millionaire is around 62 years old, and they're first generation millionaires, meaning that they didn't come from a wealthy family. They're also frugal, and by the way, frugal and cheap are two different things, and we'll talk about that in a sec. But the main idea is that the average millionaire understands the value of money, and so initially, when they start making money, they use most of their earned income to create other streams of income for them. So this way, later on, when they either can't work anymore or they don't want to work anymore, they can still have the same income. Now, I live in Florida, which is fortunate and also unfortunate. And when I just got here, I was like the average person who complained about having a bunch of old people around, because some of these old people, they're really nice, but then some of them, they're really grumpy. You can never please them. They're always in a bad mood. They're slow. But even so, most of these old people are millionaires, and they're average millionaires. So even though they're old and they're grumpy and you can never please them, if you actually talk to them, you will get to understand that this book right here, The Millionaire Next Door, is actually telling the truth. And these people, although they're very grumpy, sometimes they'll give you really good wisdom. It's like this lady that lives 2 houses down from me. She recently bought the house that was on the market for like $650,000. I'm not sure what she paid for it, but I'm assuming it's somewhere close to that. And so she's retired at 55, and she told me that she was an accountant all her life, and she simply saved her money, invested her money, and she bought this house cash, and she also recently bought a Tesla. And while it's not the Model X, it's the Model Y, it's still a really nice car. And so the point is this. This lady was basically just the average working person, and she was able to retire early, has a paid off house, has a nice car, is going to be living comfortably for the rest of her life, and she can go around and just do anything that she wants to do now. So let's talk about what the average millionaire is doing, and the first thing that they're doing is they're being frugal, and frugal is not being cheap. Being cheap is when you're trying to skip out on quality stuff because you want to save money. And so for instance, you're thinking that this is the only money that you're going to have, so you don't want to spend it, but instead, frugal is when you understand the value of money, and so you know that, okay, if I delay gratification and I set aside most of this money for investing or assets, then sooner than later, this small amount of money is going to grow that I have to work hard for every single day. It's going to grow and it's going to turn into a lot of wealth. Now again, surprisingly, the average millionaire came from a 9-to-5 job. They didn't have a business. They weren't self-employed. And I read this in books before, but now I'm 100% sure because I live around a lot of these old people who are just average people and basically still look like average people, but they're sitting on a lot of money. Now, the next thing is that these people place a lot more value on freedom instead of status symbols. And status symbols could be like fancy cars. And you'd think that millionaires are rolling around in Lambos, wearing Rolexes, a bunch of expensive iced out chains and jewelry. But most of the millionaires around here, they're driving a Lexus. And in fact, most of these people, they either drive like a Toyota Camry or a Lexus. And I don't know what it is about the Lexus brand, but they're either driving like a Lexus ES or RX. But for some reason, they just like the Lexus, and the Lexus is much cheaper than, let's say, a Bentley or a Lambo. And the reason they're driving Lexuses and Bentleys and not Lambos is because, well, they value freedom over status symbols. So instead of taking on a car with an extremely high payment or tying up a lot of your money into a really expensive car, these people choose to, again, invest their money or use their money for assets earlier on so that they have even more money for freedom. So basically, if you want to be like these people and you got a job, then the first thing you want to do is you want to understand that this money that you earn from this job is income that you need to use to help you to make more money. Now, most people spend their money on status symbols, whether it's clothes, going out, eating out, going on vacations, shopping, cars, apartments, and stuff like that. But the people that prioritize freedom over status symbols, they're the ones that are actually seeing the results and are making it as millionaires. Now, this is the little book of Common Sense Investing by John C. Bogle. And John C. Bogle is the founder of Vanguard. And John C. Bogle showed us that if you're on a fixed income or low income, if you just have a regular job and you don't have a lot of money, you don't want to go into risky investments because you don't want to risk all that money that you worked so hard for. So instead, what you should do is to put like $100 in like a Roth IRA, which has a broad market ETF in there, and that will grow to over 1.2 million in 30 years, and it's going to be tax-free. Now, for some people, it could be investing like this, or it could be like in real estate, or it could be a business or some other asset. But for the average person, you definitely don't want to risk your money if you have a job and you're working a 9-to-5 because it's really hard to make this money. And so you don't want to risk it all where you can lose all your money. So instead, you want to choose something that is low risk, but still has the potential to make you a millionaire. And so real estate is a good example. And also ETFs are a good example. Now, the next thing that you've got to do or got to learn is to prioritize. And you want to always handle the most important business first. And so we can go back to the plight of the lawyer or the attorney who is making 2.7 million per year. And at the age of 65, doesn't have enough in savings and now is scrambling because they can no longer make this high income of 2.7 million per year. And instead, you want to always prioritize business over pleasure and also freedom over status symbols. So there's just a couple basic things that you need to learn. And this is like, one, create a budget and stick to that budget. And secondly, create a rainy day fund, create like an emergency fund. And then thirdly, try to pay down on all your debts, stay out of debt, and then invest 15% or more of your income. And there's a ton of things that you could invest in. But you want to invest that amount of your income or more, and then whatever is left, you can take that money and then you can go enjoy it. So like I said before, most people do this the other way around. They try to make a lot of money initially, and they're trying to make a lot of money initially so they can have a lot of money to spend on status symbols. But instead, you should flip this around and still try to make a lot of money. But at first, you want to spend most of that money on investing or assets that are going to help you to have the same amount of income, either when you decide to stop working or when you just can't work anymore, which is eventually going to happen. So with that said, I hope this video helps you if you're trying to make like $1,000 from 1,000 different ways. And I hope it helps you so that you don't actually make all this money and then go spend it on status symbols. And after 10 years, you have nothing to show for all this money that you've made. And then with that said, these are the 2 books that I think you guys should read. If you haven't, I'll leave a link to them below. It's the Little Book of Common Sense Investing, a really good book, and also The Millionaire Next Door, another really good book. I think everyone should read these 2 books if you've read no other books. And with that said, all the best, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow in the next one.